So as the fight over redistricting heats up across the country, one California Republican is trying to stop what he calls a nationwide redistricting war. Republican California Congressman Kevin Kiley is introducing legislation aimed at preventing states from redrawing congressional maps mid-decade. Congressman Kiley joins me now. Does that include the Texas redrawing proposal where this all began, Congressman?
Yes, it does. It would apply to every state in the country. Now, of course, I'm in California, and I'm concerned first and foremost with what's happening in my own state. Governor Newsom is proposing a scheme to abolish our state's independent redistricting commission that was established by voters, essentially disregarding the will of voters in order to eliminate all but maybe 3 or 4 of the Republican seats in Congress that we have in California. So we'd be left with 3 or 4 out of 52 seats. And again, this goes directly against what voters said when they established this independent commission. So what's going on in California is worse than anywhere else in the country because he's trying to ignore the voters and abolish that commission. But I don't like what's going on in other states either. And I think this sort of domino effect, this arms race where one state after another is going to be reshuffling their lines. So we essentially have rolling redistricting. I don't think that's good for Democrats or Republicans. There are really no winners in this arms race. So that's why I've introduced this bill to bring back some sanity, to say enough is enough. Let's get on with the issues that really matter.
Well, it probably doesn't surprise you that one of your fellow members of Congress, Jasmine Crockett, says you're doing this out of self-preservation. Here's what she had to say about it. Listen.
It only took a threat of him possibly losing his seat to finally see the light. Even if the speaker had the audacity to put this bill on the floor, it would never, ever get to the president's desk to actually be signed, because we know that all they care about is pledging their fealty to him, and they don't want to upset him. So this will never go anywhere. But that particular Republican congressman from California is absolutely most likely going to be on the chopping block if California goes forward with this trigger bill.
I suppose it's also possible that if Texas goes forward with its bill, her seat could be on the chopping block.
Well, sure. And I'm actually not super concerned about my own seat. Gavin Newsom is going to target me in every way that he can. He tried to do that last year by sending his own staff member to run against me. I won by 46,000 votes. So there's only so much that he can do to try to remove me or to redraw lines in my district. But this does underscore an important point, that the governor is trying to eliminate political opposition in our state. I have led the charge in Congress to counteract Newsom's policies. And in fact, we've overturned a number of his very worst policies. I'm fighting against the sanctuary state. I'm fighting against his men and women's sports policy. My bill to overturn his ban on gas-powered cars has been passed and signed into law. We cut off his funding for high-speed rail. We reversed his very worst crime policies. So of course, Gavin Newsom would like to get rid of me. And since he was unable to do so fair and square in a free and fair election, he's trying to import more voters by redrawing district lines. But I don't think it's going to work. The voters of California, if this does come to a vote, I think will reaffirm their decision that redistricting should be done by an independent commission. It should not be done by politicians like Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, let's take a look at the states that say they are open to redistricting and the way the balance of power is in those states right now. In California, 43 out of the 52 seats, congressional seats, are held by Democrats. Illinois, 14 out of 17. In Maryland, 7 out of 8. 9 out of 12 in New Jersey. And you can go on and on and on. Read the list for yourself. It seems like they've already done some gerrymandering to get as much Democrat representation as they can out of their populations.
Well, that's right, exactly. And there's the irony that the Democrats in Texas are going to Illinois, which has about the most gerrymandered map we've had since 1812, when the term gerrymandering was invented. There was this crazy-looking district in Massachusetts that looked vaguely like a salamander, and the governor at the time was Eldridge Gerry. So that's where the term gerrymandering comes from. So absolutely. But, you know, in fairness, both parties have done it. I think gerrymandering is a problem, whichever party does it. And it's in particular a problem when it happens in the middle of the decade. And when all is said and done here, it might well end up being a wash at great cost and at the cost of being a major distraction at a time when you look at the border, we've brought illegal border crossings to an absolute halt after the Biden border crisis was the worst border disaster in history. We just passed historic tax relief for the American people. We've neutralized the nuclear threat from Iran. Meanwhile, the Democrats are embracing socialism in New York City, and they have never been more unpopular. So I absolutely think Republicans can win the House in 2026 using the exact same map with which we won the House in 2024. And these redistricting games are, number one, a distraction, are giving Gavin Newsom a pretext to try to obliterate the Republican Party in California at a time when the Republican Party in California is actually on the rise.
Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley will be watching that introduction of your bill when Congress resumes. Congressman, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.